Hi, very good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Jambor. I'm head of systems engineering here at Vodafone, and I'm here to talk about immutable telemetry. So last year, I was lucky enough to present in the same summit, and we were talking about a very similar topic, immutable telemetry, and how Vodafone implemented immutable telemetry to become a better, more speedy technological company. So I just would like to pick up what we talked about last year and then continue from there to show what 1 year is enabled us to achieve. So going back 3 years in time, Vodafone decided that it would like to transition from a traditional telecommunication company to a more trendy technological company. It's not just because it sounds better, but also basically the decision has been made to take ownership of their IT stack, develop their own capabilities, and they realize that by doing so, they can do much more for their customers than just actually provide the telecommunication service that they used to do. So one of the enablers and one of the vehicle which they choose to achieve the transition to a technological company was DevOps as a culture and SRE as an engineering discipline to enable and bring DevOps to life. So we're here to talk about immutable telemetry, but why is it important for us and what is it exactly? So immutable telemetry is basically our capability to build monitoring, observability, and alerting and all the communication channels needed for any microservice and any service which we release to production without any human interaction. So we are capable of doing so in full automation. And if something goes wrong, then we literally just redeploy it. So why immutability is important? Last year, I used an example, and it's still one of my favorite. When you are racing in a Formula One race and you get a punctured tire, then you go out to the pit stop and you're not going to wait to anybody to repair your tire. Your team is going to just take off the tire, throw it away, quickly give you a brand new one, and you back to the race and you continue where you left it off. Now, this is the type of situation which we are doing as well with our production. We want to make sure that if we have any issue, our customers are experiencing the least amount of interruption, and therefore we're doing everything we can to really quickly throw away what's wrong and build it something which is brand new. So how are we actually enabling immutable telemetry in our system? Is through full automation, through the DevOps end-to-end ownership and enable, and a end-to-end single pass to prod CI/CD pipeline, which through we are releasing to production. So what are we doing exactly is any microservice in any given moment, which Vodafone currently has over 500 of, 50 of, and we have 500 developers who are actually maintaining those in the UK. So every single time they release something new, we don't have to know, there's no human interaction there. If they decide to break down a microservice into smaller, meaningful pieces, they just release it to prod, and through the automation, we're building a new monitoring and alerting, a communication channel where we are constantly stating the health state of it. We are raising alerting rules and call out of our repositories and team ownership matrix. So there is no human interaction or involvement is needed in order to get something from 0 to 100% into production live. So by doing that, we learned a lot in the last year. So I mentioned quite a few times end-to-end and developer ownership. And that is where we started. That's still one of the key principles we are following today. Ownership must go to the dev teams. But we are providing a rock solid defaults, not because we don't trust the guys to do it right, but because we want to make sure that they don't have to. If they are happy with the defaults which we have, that provides them a much quicker and much safer path to production, and therefore improves quality for the service and for the release cycle as well. As you could guess, it's very obvious that automation is key. However, fine-tuning and continuous review is still a desirable setup. It's not just like you created it and it just works, you just leave it there. There is your estate is continuously going to evolve, whether you are a big company or a small one. Your requirements are always going to change. So you need to make sure that you write an automation which you are capable of adopting to your needs. And in order to adopt that, one of the key principles is project agnostic capabilities. Project agnostic is something which you should aim for. However, again, you will not be able to achieve it on day one. So don't strive and don't try to succeed at first. Try your very best to keep your project as agnostic as possible, but you won't know your new project requirements in the future. So try to make it modular. And that all comes down to reusability. That's why automation and the project agnostic is so important. So what we are doing here in the UK is we started with a small subset of teams. And those teams now became a core center of excellence for other services to do the same kind of transformational journey which we went through. So that's why we are saying reusability is a must, but we never know what the new requirements are going to bring to our way. So there are every day new projects popping in, new requirements are presenting itself, and you won't be able to prepare for all of this in the future. So be ready to change the way you do things all the time, always review and always readjust your strategy. But these basic principles which you learn, it still stood the challenge of time well. So there are three big best practices which I wanted to highlight and mention today. One is when you are building these capabilities, our suggestion would be to modularize and automize as much as possible. So what do we mean by that? What we are suggesting is if you are aiming for a single repository, which is fulfilling exactly just one capability, then you are in the right path. So I use two different studies quote here, but the core message here is if you are creating a capability and you create this capability very well for a single purpose, then people will be able to reuse that much easier. Think about this as small Lego pieces. So with Lego, you are capable of building any kind of structure, any tool, using the exact same style of bricks all over, and your end result is always different. That's what we are experiencing with most of our projects. We always use the same building blocks, and if they are modular enough, they are well-defined enough or mature enough, then people can reuse them. And as many of these projects we are capable of reusing, as much time we are saving for our developers and teams in the future. The second one is communication. So using the actual telemetry which we built. So we learned that there is two very different level of communication which we are doing on a day-to-day basis. One, the first, and the most common, is technical. So our technical communication channel using these methodology is usually ends up having a single linear storyline where the story is constantly evolving. So you realize and you can see at what time, what information has been presented, and based on those informations, what were the decisions which has been made by who and why. And that gives you a really nice timeline to understand what happened and what's happening. But these are very technical, very detailed. Now, we started off using only that single timeline. So we always had a technical update, and we presented these updates to our stakeholders as well. And although in the beginning it was very well received and it was really beneficial, we always got the same questions of, okay, but what is the problem? Especially if when people joined in late the conversation. So we realized really quickly, and there is a second level of communication required here, which is the stakeholder management. So our stakeholder communication surrounds itself with three single points. What is the actual problem statement, which we always start the update with? What is the impact for the business, for the service, for us and stakeholders? And what's the plan of action which we are currently executing and where we are with it? So what's happening? So the difference between the technical communication and stakeholder communication is, meanwhile, when you provide an update on the technical one, you just state out the new updates and facts. But when you are communicating with the stakeholder, you always just repeat what you said many, many times. Problem statement, impact, and plan of action. And we realized that by differentiating these two, especially with automation, makes a massive difference. The third is enhancing and continuously evolving these. And there are three things which we learned in the past year or so. We must remain and focus on declarative orchestrational capabilities, and that's what we need to continuously evolve. That's something which we are constantly updating in the last 2 years. So the fundamentals of the declarative orchestration, basically you declare what state you want, and that's how you interact with your systems. That is our absolute basic requirements to do infrastructure as code. And if you want to do immutable telemetry, infrastructure as code is something which you must adopt before you even go down this route. The second one is idempotency. So idempotency means that you can apply the same request as many times as you want. The end result is going to be the same. So declarative orchestration and idempotency is basically really strongly coupled. If you declare the end state and you declare it 20 times, the end result is always going to be that same. And pipeline integration is a third one, which was super important for us, and we are utilizing the most. So in order in Vodafone to release something to production in the UK, you're going through multiple stages of environment in a fully automated CD fashion. And each of the stages, you have different quality gates, which you are going through. Now, with immutable telemetry, every stage is monitored, alerted, and we receive notifications on the service level, on the component level, and on the infrastructure and environment level as well. So we're not just receiving notifications through the CI/CD pipeline, but we are immediately have near to live input and communication from the microservices and the components on each of the stages as they are running through tests and deployments, which is a really powerful and strong capability to have, and we are leveraging it on a daily basis. So what are the benefits and outcomes we managed to achieve? And I'm going to break it down into year one, which happened between 2 years and 2 years ago, and the last year's result. And I'm really happy with the results which we managed to do in the last year as well. So in the first year, MTTA, which is mean time to acknowledge, we went down from 30 minutes interval to 2 minutes, which is a massive difference. And mean time to acknowledge means that there is something wrong. How much time does it take to you to actually realize that something is wrong? And the average was about half an hour on year one, and went down to 2 minutes by the end of the year one. Now in the second year, we went from 2 minutes to 1.2. Now I understand that the step is not that big, but the percentage is still significant, and the improvements there is just as impactful. MTTR, which is mean time to resolve. In the first year, we went from a 90 minutes time to recover, basically, to under a half an hour. And in the second year, we went from half an hour to 18 minutes. Again, the percentage itself is massive. Now, I put up here velocity because I wanted to show that in the first year, we improved 2.5 times the speed of our releases and delivery, but it's not just directly related to immutable telemetry. It was one of the big enablers. However, obviously, many other factors is contributing into it. And in the second year, we improved an additional 27% on the first year's improved 250. However, when you have a look on velocity, and then the last one, which I love the most, noise versus warning. So how much noise are you receiving compared to the meaningful message which an engineer should react to? On the first year, we managed to reduce 92% of the alerts and ended up with a noise to meaningful alert ratio to 1250 to 1. I know it sounds terrible, but imagine how was it previously. We had many thousands of alerts coming in, which we barely reacted to. Now, in the second year, we took an additional 35% decrease, and we ended up with a superb 3-to-1 ratio. So we are receiving 3 alerts, 1 meaningful, I need to react to it. And I really would like to highlight, it's not just the ratio which is important, but those 3 alerts are still meaningful. I just do not have to react to it because it's not something which I am expected to manage because the system is capable of doing so. So the noise versus warning or meaningful message is improved the most and enabling us to spend our time better than just trying to figure it out why my phone is constantly beeping. And therefore, the engineering time which we avoided in the last 2 years is an amazing business outcome, which we are measuring. So this is what we did in the last 2 years, and this is what we achieved. So what are we focusing on next? So we're taking our currently existing capabilities in the United Kingdom and internally open sourcing it. I deliberately left internal black because I'm really hoping that in about a year or so, we can externally open source most of the things which we did as well. And that would be awesome. But right now we are taking our couple of hundred microservices. I believe we have 300, 400 microservice live at the moment across all the environments. And now we are taking it into thousands. We are sharing it with our European cultures and basically worldwide with Vodafone, which takes it really to the next level. We would like to implement artificial intelligence into our telemetry systems. So we built OAC, which is observability as code, that is monitoring all, and including telemetry and dashboard creation and everything else. And we currently have a reactive system. So something happens and we immediately react to it, whether automation or alerting or both. But we want to implement artificial intelligence into the system to become a proactive OAC environment, meaning that before something breaks, we can react to it because we can forecast that something is going to the trend, which I will not be able to handle well. And therefore, I'm taking corrective actions before the actual incident is happening. And I'm hoping that it will bring the noise ratio, not just to 1-to-1, but if it's possible, 0-to-1, because I know something should happen, but I want to react to it before that would reach the threshold to alert me. So I really hope that we are reaching that 1-to-1 ratio at the end. We're focusing on on-demand capabilities, and this is something sounds less interesting than artificial intelligence, but it's just as important and just as complex, if not more. So we want to make sure with the DevOps and SRE enablement that we are giving the developer teams all the capabilities they ever going to need to handle the software delivery cycle. So we want to make sure that we are capable of creating telemetry on the fly. So what do I mean by that? And I put it there near real time because you're never going to be real time there, but let's say a couple of milliseconds delay is acceptable there. So what I mean by that, if we on demand create a new environment, which we are capable of doing now, and run a few tests, and the test shows signs of something which you don't expect. If you want to be able to enable extra telemetry for both monitoring, alerting as such, meanwhile your test is running, we want to enable our devs to do this on the fly. So let's say you run a performance test and it's running far longer than you expected and you don't want to watch the screen for the next 4 hours. So if you set up your PagerDuty alerting, say if some and you want to apply your production alerting roles into your performance testing, that if something goes wrong for the next 2 hours, you want to get a call out because you know that something actually happened, and that's when you have to come back. You would be capable of doing so on the fly, on demand, on a currently running test environment, utilizing Immutable Telemetry. And obviously continuous improvement, which we are doing all the time. We want to make sure that we are expanding our automation footprint to a much wider toolkit. So what we are doing right now is internally open sourcing, breaking down the capabilities to get closer to this 1-to-1 ratio of 1 repo equals 1 capability, and continuously reviewing new requirements from other teams, and then trying to make sure that our old requirements are still met, but our new requirements are getting satisfied as well in the same repo. Now, it sometimes means that I take one repo and break it down into two smaller pieces, but then we are evolving and getting closer to an automation, which is awesome. So this is the end of my presentation. I'm really proud of what we achieved with Vodafone in the last 2.5 years, and I'm really looking forward to see how far we are going next. If you are an SRE who is interested and want to join us to help us become a much better, much more capable engineering discipline, feel free to go to our website and register your interests. Let us know if you are interested and we'll get in touch. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Have a nice day.
Welcome back, everyone. How great have the past 2 days been? We're now heading into one of my favorite parts of Summit, the networking. There are tons of ways for all of us to connect, the one-on-one video chat or the larger site-wide chat, or feel free to post on the event's social feed. Maybe expand your global contacts in the network directory. And be sure to check out the Birds of a Feather group discussions. These group virtual conversations are our way of recreating what we would have done in person. Sit around a table getting to know each other. It's an informal setting with preset topics to help you find a table full of people with like interests. After networking, we'll go right back into more breakout sessions. See you soon.